Alright, so we are gonna be doing a to-do form using Mobx, right? So we're gonna do... I'll just get this thing real quick. So let's just real quick design it. Whoops. Yeah, so the idea is gonna be we're gonna have like a input field like this, button probably like this. It's gonna have like add in here. So when we click, it's going to start adding elements like this. Something like this too. It's going to clear this once we add it, and then it will probably going to do like this. One completed out of 3. I guess when we click on it, it's going to create line through. That's gonna be our form, right? And we're gonna be using Mobx. I think what we're gonna do next is we're gonna create a second component. So let's say we call this component 2. Yeah, so this will display only what you still have to do, right? So in here we just want to make sure that state is being, so it's gonna look like this, right? So it's gonna be our component 1. And this is component 2, right? So that's gonna be our design. Okay, so let's do it, right? So let's... Okay, so the first thing we need is we need to create a... We're gonna do it in... like so. We're gonna... Oh, whoops. Script. And we're gonna use Mobx. We're gonna do it like this. I'm gonna pause. I mean, there's pointless for you to watch this, right? So, 1 second. Alright, so our thing stopped installing, so we're gonna do the thing like so. Alright. Man, maybe it's in here. 1 second. I'm just trying to find my gloves. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, we're using Mobx thing. So the next thing is we need to install it, right? So we need to do new terminal, and then we're gonna install 2 things. We're gonna install so we need npm install Mobx, npm install Mobx like this, and we also need to add Mobx React Lite like this. Okay, so this thing is done now. We need to create a store. Alright, so let's create a store. Store TSX like this, right? Probably gonna complain that we don't have a... Oh, it's not complaining. Oh, it is complaining. Okay, so the code is quite astronomical, right? It's quite long. So we go step by step. So the first thing we need to do is we need to import make auto observable, like this from Mobx. Import make auto observable. So what this does is this eliminates the need for creating decorators in Mobx, right? Because in Mobx you have to create those decorators, but this thing completely eliminates this, right? Then we're gonna need... No, actually we don't need anything. Okay, so Mobx, basically, when you think about Mobx, it's like a... How to explain this to you? So let's just do like this. So Mobx effectively is like a box where you have two things. You have your states, right? Which are gonna be like variables, basically. Variables, right? And then you're gonna have your methods, which are functions, right? That are also state, kind of. If you want. You don't have to, but you can use them. And it's gonna be class. So you can think about it as an object where all of your state and methods that you want to use globally live. And as opposed to being an object, it's just a class. And that's about it. And when anything in here changes, your components re-render. That's kind of it. Really. There's nothing magical about it, right? Okay, so now we need to create this so class. Let's go to my store. And of like this, right? So we need a constructor. Okay, and then we need to put this code, magical code. Where's the magical code? 1 second. I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, so we need to put make and bind it to this, basically. So in here, all of your variables are going to be here, and then all of your methods are here, and that's it. Okay, so we're creating ToDo, so we're going to need an input, right, field. So we're going to need we just put it like this, and there's going to be a string. Oh yeah, we need this initializer, so we're going to do it like this. And then let's go with ToDo list. It's going to be an array. Whoopsie. Array of string. Like this. What else do we need? Actually, no. It's not going to be strings. It's going to be like an object with so we're going to have name in it, because we need to have done, true or false as well. So we need to create an interface. Interface task. Let's do it like this. We're going to have name, which is going to be a string. And then we're going to have is done boolean, right? Like this. And then this is going to be array of those tasks. Yeah. Okay, let's create a method which is called add to-do list, like this. Probably gonna have name. Yeah, let's just do this. This is gonna be a string. And then we're gonna have this input, oh whoops. To-do list dot push input. Oh whoops. Which is gonna be name. Is gonna be input. Is done. Is gonna be false. This input, right? And then we need to change this input is equal to like this. Because remember, once we click the button, input should become whatever, right? Okay. We can probably deal with the rest later. Let's just do this basic setup first. Okay, so this is done. Yeah. So that's pretty much Mobx in a nutshell, right? That's your states, and that's your methods, and that's it, right? So now we need to make it available globally. So the way to do that is we're gonna use context from actual React. So we're gonna use context, I think. We're gonna need create context, right? And we probably let's just end use state just in case, you know. We might need it, we might not need it. Okay, so now we need to create context, right? So the context is going to be const my store context, right? Like this. And we're gonna create context. It's gonna be any I think it's going to complain, but we can just do new my store like this. You honestly don't need to do it, but I mean it complains because it's TypeScript. Normally you don't need to do it. So you can kind of ignore this part. We're just doing it for TypeScript. And then we need to create our provider, right? My store provider equals. Alright, so in here we're gonna be passing store as a property. Honestly, I'm trying to figure out maybe there's no need to do it, but we'll do that at the end. We'll test to see if we can just maybe remove this property at all. And then you obviously need your children, which is standard. Like this. It's going to complain. We can just put any probably. We can probably put any in here. Yeah. So the TypeScript is gonna stop complaining. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna return my store context, right? And then in here we're gonna have our children. Okay, so value is gonna be missing. Oh, whoops, this has to be a provider as well. And then this needs to have value. And value is gonna be store. So we're gonna create a new instance of the store. Now, bear with me, I'm still trying to figure out this Mobx thing, right? Because I'm trying to figure out, do you have to... Possibly we can just create a store in here. I'll deal with that later. Okay, so now we need to make it available globally. So we're gonna do const use global use my store global, right? So that's gonna be our custom hook, and we're gonna return use context my store context, right? Yes. Right, so now we need to export, right? So what do we need to export? We need to export, I think we need to export the store. So we need to export the store. Use my store global, because we need to use it globally. And then, now this part I'm doing here is kind of not well, I don't know. I'm still experimenting with it. We'll do it at the end. And then use my store globally, and then we need the my store provider as well, because we need to wrap my store provider, right? Yes. Okay, so that should be all the exports and imports that we need. Okie dokes. Okay. So next we need to go into index, I think, right? We're gonna remove strict mode, and we're gonna import. And we're gonna import two things, right? We're gonna import. Actually, we're gonna move this to last, so we don't get. We're gonna import these two things. Store provider, because we have to wrap our my store provider. I think it's like this, right? This is kind of standard use context setup, right? When we're just using Mobx as a state management system. And kind of that's about it. Okay, so next thing we need to do is we need to create a store instance equals new my store. Okay, so now what we're doing, we're creating an instance of this class. Again, I'm not sure if you actually have to do it, but honestly, I suspect you can just yoink it into provider straight away, because we're gonna be passing it as a property, so I'm pretty sure you can possibly do it. You can just yoink it in here, and then that's it. Because what this instance does is it basically creates a... It's kind of like... you know, when you create use state, you have your, I don't know, input, you have your state, and then set state, right? So this will be now, so this is now state, basically. Everything in here is basically whatever you see in here. So it's accessible. So you want to access input, you can just type store instance dot input, and there you go. You have access to it, right? So, but according to the, like in the video, the guy wanted to put it in here, so we're gonna put as a property store instance, right? So now we are receiving it in here. I'll put the tutorial I'm using in the description below, right? I'm basically using this guy's tutorial. Whoops. Reminder, put the guide tutorial and video description. Okay, so I think that's the setup, right? So I think we can go to app. We probably want to have store like this. And then we're gonna remove all of this mumbo jumbo. Alright, so next thing we need to do is we need to, yeah, so we need to wrap our function so we're gonna do it like this. One important thing we need to import is, it's called observer, I think, from Mobx React Lite. So that's okay, and then you need to, basically this thing, right, this thing detects changes, right? So I'll give you an example. So let's say, let's just do test component, right? Test component, right? Return, we're gonna return something later. Okay, so the second thing we need to import is, whoopsie, we need to import this thing here so we can access the store globally, right? There you go. Oh, my apologies, I'm yawning so much, it's just that this thing is not the most exciting thing. So okay, so now you see we're using my store global, right? So now we have access to the store, right? I think we should have access to the store. Yeah. So technically we can console log this bad boy. Let me see. Let's just return something. Let's do div h1 test, and let's run npm start. Whoops, wrong one. Yes, npm start. Oh, whoops, we need to put test component in here. Test component. So you see now we have access to the store, right? You see we have. Now honestly, the way Mobx displays information is kind of troll, but you can see that we have access to it, right? So I'd probably recommend maybe use context and Redux first before you go into Mobx, because console logging this stuff is a bit of a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie. But you can do like things like store input, for example, right? You can even type something in it, right? Let's say test type. Right? So you see it's displaying it, right? Okie dokes. So, alright, so what do you want to do? Oh yeah, I want to show you the fact that yeah, so let's create an input field, right? And value is going to be whatever we put into store that input, right? So that's going to be our value. And let's put default here so we'll be able to see it. You see, so now it's reading off the state. Alright, so next thing we need to do is we need to... What do we need to do? Yeah, we need to create a... I suppose maybe let's do handle input. This is more familiar. Handle input, just going to be string, and then this input is equal to a string. Okay, so now we can do on change. Event, right? And then it's gonna be store dot handle input e target value. I think like this, right? You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna every time store changes, we're gonna console log it. That's what we're gonna do. Let me just do use effect real quick. Console log store. Whoops. And then we're gonna console store, right? Yeah, so I think the problem is, right, so we're trying to type something and it's not changing. I think the problem with that is because we need to put observer in here, like this. Interesting. You see, so now we can type. Huh. Yeah, you see, I'm kind of like, this is my first time doing Mobx. Like, I literally just got introduced today, so I'm kind of trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So it's not detecting a change in store at all, which is quite interesting. So basically observer is what makes it re-render. So every time you change something in here, if you have observer, it's going to re-render the state, right? That's why we're able to type, right? But the thing is, we're typing and it's not really detecting anything. So where does the re-render happen then? That's the question I want to know. Maybe if I console log. Let me see. Let me just console log. Store in here. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. So basically what happens is when you're typing, right, you see it's console logging store. What observer does is it's going to re-render this component, right? So it's going to rerun this function basically, right? So that's what observer does, right? So every time you change state in here, observer is going to re-render this function. That's how it detects changes. So observer is effectively use state setter, right? So interesting. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. I need to make a note of that. 1 second. Yeah, so you see we were not able to type because there is no observer, right? There is no update to state. It's not re-rendering the component. That was the problem. Okay, so now we have this done. Maybe we can just call this input. I don't know. I'll just keep it in here, honestly. So we're gonna call this our to-do list, right? Like this. So what do we want to make it look like? Okay, so we have input field. Now we need to add a form, right? Actually, I'll just put it in here. Honestly. Okay, so now we need to put, so input field we have. We need to add a button in here, like this. And this is going to be add, right? And then on click, we're going to run. What are we going to run? We need to run add to-do list, right? That's what we need to do. So this is going to be store dot add to-do list, like this. I think we can put set like this. Now, normal class object like getters and setters, they work in here. So just FYI. So now this should, in theory, add into our component, right? No, it's not. It's not doing it. Oh, because there is name in here. We don't actually need this in here at all. Yeah, so we don't even need this set right here. Yeah, okay, so now we just need to run it then. I'm not like super good with classes, so my apologies. Okay, so now it works. Alright, so now we have to do tasks. Okay, so here is how it works. Look, you see? Input we have default, to-do list we have array 0 items, right? So when we add, you can see that input becomes nothing, and to-do list becomes array with 1 item in it, right? Again, my apologies for this, like the way they the way they display information is ultimately troll. It's just troll basically. Because I was expecting it would have like some kind of array or whatever, but I mean it's just troll. Anyway, so it does what it wants. We have what it wants it to do, right? So when you click on add to list, it pushes whatever you typed into the input into here as name, and it sets is done to false. Okay, and then it resets the input to whatever. I'm gonna remove this default, so we don't need this anymore, right? Because I demonstrated that you can do it. Okay, and then I'm gonna put this is store here. Honestly, like this is just, in a nutshell, you're kind of good to go for Mobx, because that's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be creating methods, and we're gonna be updating state, and that's about it. That's about it, right? And the way you do that is you create use context, make it available globally, import it into your component, wrap the component inside observer, so now every time state changes, it re-renders the component. You're done. That's it. Right, so now everything I'm going to be doing from now is kind of be just the subset of what I already showed you, so you can kind of go and do your own projects if you want. But I'll complete the to-do list, right? So okay, so now we need to somehow display. We need to somehow display the. I'm gonna put horizontal line in here. We want to display what's in to-do list, right? We want to display in here, right? So we're gonna probably put UL, right? And then we're gonna do store dot to-do list dot map we probably need to man, it keeps complaining about those. Let me just remove this real quick, otherwise it's gonna complain all the time. Where's my TypeScript? Uh-huh. So we need to put this in here. So this tells TypeScript not to complain about if I don't declare a type, right? Basically, that should not. See, so now the whatever the error is gone now, right? So we need const. Okay, so what do we have? We have two things. We have name and is done, right? So equal to item. So we're going to reconstruct return. Should we? Whoops. So we're gonna do name, and here we're gonna put key as name plus math random Yeah, let's just do that. Doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter. My front is okay. Unlikely we're gonna get duplicates, but it's okay. Yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, it's complaining because we stopped the server. Because you see, when you change config files, server normally just crashes. Because you made like a fundamental change in the server, so we have to restart. Alright, so let's test. Okay, so now it's working. You see, so now we're adding. Now let me show you why it's important to have observer. Okay, this thing here. Let me just kind of create a new component in here. We'll call this test2 like this. Look, let's do const test2 equals like this, like this, like this. Man, why is my thing keeps doing this? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So we need to copy the state, right? And then we're gonna return. Let's just do store input, right? So when store changes, in theory, right? When store changes. So let's put default in here, right? Default. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's put this as style equals color red, right? Okay. So now look, you see, it's not being updated. Why? Because observer is not there, right? So every time you reference a state, if you want it to change, if you want the state to change, if you want a function or whatever component to re-render, you have to put this thing around it. And now it's going to start working, you see? Does that make sense? Basically, this is your kind of thing that watches the state. If the state has changed, if the component inside the state. Now, I think it's very smart, right? So if you were to change to-do list, I don't think it would re-render. Let's just see if it's going to render. Console log. Did it re-render? Okay, so let's see what's happening. We want to remove this console log. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so now it re-rendered once. Now it's re-rendering. Okay, so now let's change this to... Actually, let's not reference anything. Let's see if it's going to re-render. Yeah. It's smart. That's very good. You see? So this is kind of like, yeah, you can think of this as use effect, right? This here is use effect basically, right? So what it does is creates a dependency, right? So if now it then reads the store and it checks for dependency, which is the state that you're using. Because look, if we are going to insert probably store dot to-do list, right? every time we change to-do list, it's going to trigger, right? Because you see now it created dependency, right? So if we blah 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 blah, no, okay. Why is it not re-rendering? Because I think it should be in HTML then, right? Let's see. Okay, so let's change this to div. Let me just check real quick. Let's just do like this. JSON stringify, and then we'll just store dot to-do list like this. Let's just do it like this. Okay. So let's see what's gonna happen now. Yes. Okay. That makes sense now. Now you see, it's not rendering. Now we have two states, right? We have two states. One controls the input. One controls the array of to-do items, right? Notice, when we're typing, we are updating the state inside the store, right? But this component here does not care about input, okay? Because input is not its dependency, right? So this observer is smart. It looks at the component and checks for dependency. Okay, so it says, all right, so to-do list is a dependency. So I will update only when to-do list gets changed. Any other state gets updated, we don't care about. So it's kind of like automatically creates use state dependency for you, when you think about it this way, right? I have to say I'm digging this. I have to admit I'm digging this. This is magical, right? This is smart. This is very, very smart. Because I heard a lot of people, they were like, oh yeah, Mobx, you know, especially kind of programmers with a lot of experience. I can see why. Right? Because look, you see, you can have 1 million states, and it will only re-render the component once its dependency has changed. That saves a lot of resources. You don't even have to think about it. Man, I'm digging this. I'm actually digging this, yeah. Because if you were to do that through use context and just create an object, right? Every time you would update input, the whole component would re-render, even though it only needs to-do list, because you will have a single object that would update absolutely everywhere at every point in time. If you change anything in the state, because this will force the re-render. But this thing creates so basically the crown jewel of Mobx, I'd say, is this thing here, the observer. I'd say this is the crown jewel of this system, because that is magical. Alright, so you can see now how it works. Okay, so let me make a note on this. Observer is like use effect. It will only update the component when its dependent state, i.e. state that is used inside the component, is updated. If any other state updates, component does not re-render. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so now all I want to do next is, what else do we need to do? We need to basically, honestly, we don't need to do this part here because we kind of done it. I just wanted to check. I just wanted to check to see how they. No, actually, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll just create a completely separate component, import the thing into it, right, and then see if it's going to display. So that's gonna be our third project. Okay, so what do I need to do right now? I need to create. Whoops! What did I just do? Oh, I just trolled. Whoops! No, I didn't troll. Did I just screw up my drawing? I think I just screwed up my drawing. It should be still here though. I think this is my 8th, right? I think this is 8th. Okay, so now I need one completed of 3, so this is, should be very easy. To-do list, and it's under the input, right? Yeah. So this thing sits in here. So we will do H3, one completed out of 3. Oh, whoops, it's not. It should not be here, it should be under the button. Like this. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we need to, this will be store dot to-do list dot length. And here we need to do a long function, store dot to-do list dot filter item dot is done. Also true. False. No, not false. Wait. So we're gonna filter. True. Should be true, I think, right? And then we need dot length. So this should be 0. Yes. Okay, so we have 0 completed. Right, so that's our task thing. My apologies, I just don't like the way it looks. Let me just add a div in here real quick. So we're gonna style padding, let's do 30 pixels like this. Maybe 40 even. It's just that I don't like when it's yoinked literally right next to the... It just drives me crazy. I don't know why. My apologies, it just drives me nuts. Okay, so this is done. Okay, so we don't need this anymore. So we need to add some... Okay, so we're gonna remove default as well. And we're gonna display this only if... You see, because you can see this empty array, so we're just gonna display store that length is bigger than 0, then we're gonna display. Else we don't display, right? Yes, okay. Alright. And we're gonna put horizontal line in here. Nah, you need to put horizontal line. Anyway, it's not a big deal. I didn't give a shit about it. It's not. I just wanted to get rid of. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference to me. Okay, so now we can add items, right? So okay, so now we're adding items. Now we need to, when we click the item, it styles as line through, right? Okay. Yeah, for this to happen, we probably need an ID. We need identifier. So we need to add ID is equal to number, right, like this. So we need ID is equal to this. To-do list dot length plus 1, probably like this. And then we need to extract ID from here. I'm going to create a method, handle I'm just thinking, should I do it in here or should I do it in here? Yeah, I'll just do it in here. Handle is done, change like this. So ID is going to be a number. Oops. 1 second, I'll be back. Un momento. Okay, so we're doing this one here. So we want to change the blah blah blah. So we want to click on it and it changes. Okay, so we need let new r equals this to-do list. Do we need index? No. So we're going to return the item, and then we're going to do like this. If item.it equals IT, and we're going to return item. And then we want is done is equal to reverse item like this. And then we want this to-do list equals to yard. Yeah, we can do it this way. So like this. Okay, so now we need on click event. Okay, so we can see this is changing now, you see. So we click it, and we can see the state is changing, right? Let's see. Let's see. Yeah. I think this is done now. And we'll have one more thing to do, and then that's it, we're done. I'll be back 1 second. Alright, so final thing left to do would be to create a completely separate component. So let's do... Actually, let's go to folder, actually, I'm not going to do it now. Because I'm going to be deleting this folder anyway, so it's a bit of a waste of time. Practice.tsx like this. We're going to create a React function component like so. Right, so now we need to copy all of this here. No, I'm going to use it that way. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, doke. So in here we just want to basically map through items that are not yet completed. That's going to be our plan. So naturally we need to wrap this. Like so. And like so, we need to wrap, because this is observer. Okay, so now we need to do this a little bit better. No, this seems to be correct. Oh, we need to put const like this. Const, okay. So now we need like this, and then we're going to do tasks. We need const store equals like this, like this. One sec. 1 second. Okay, so now we need to. What should I do? Should I do UL? Yeah, I'll just do UL. Then I'm gonna do like this. Store to-do list map. Item. No, first I need to filter. So I need to filter item item is done equals false, right? Dot map into item again, and we're gonna return like this, and then we're gonna return item dot name like this. So let's see. Okay, so now we need to slap this component somewhere in here. Let's put let's put import practice. Oh, whoopsie! Because it's default to import, we're gonna need to practice from. It's in here already, right? Yeah, it's already in here. And then we're gonna slap it in here, right? Practice like this. Oh, it's complaining I should have a key property. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so it does exactly what we wanted to do. There you go. You see? Where's the complaining? Oh, it's because it's same key. Yeah. I know where the problem is. The problem is random like this. Okay, so that's all the project done. So I hope you now understand how to use Mobx. Very straightforward. Fundamentally, all it is. So here, you create a class, right? Just fundamentally how it works. You create a class where you have your store that stores your states, right? To get rid of the decorators, you have to use this. Then you create your methods in here to manage state if you want, right? And then you export it through use context. So now you can make it usable across your multiple components through use context. Right, so once that is done, so think about it as an object, it just holds your states and methods. And then if you want a component to update when the state updates, you just put observer and you're done. And remember to do the standard use context setting up a provider. Oh yes, we wanted to check to see if we can just remove this and just yoink this thing into the store. So what's going to happen? Huh. Yeah, I thought so. It still works exactly like intended. Yeah, so basically you don't need to pass store as a property. You can just create an instance of the store in here, and it technically should work. Okay, so in theory there should be two ways of using this, right? What if we try to just use my store as opposed to passing it as a provider? Let's try to use my store as an instance, right? Because this instance here, in theory, is just a new store, right? Now you can ignore this because this is irrelevant. In theory, you don't even need provider to share it globally. My assumption is like that, right? So let's see. If we just import like this, my store, and then we say store, new store, new my store, my apologies. Let's see. No. Yeah, it's not being updated for some reason. Yeah, because when you create new instance of the store, you probably create a new object with exactly the same state in it, right? Yeah. Whereas this store here is shared across everyone. But in theory, you can just create my store instance in here, right? In theory, right? You can just create like this. Let global store equals new my store. Well, now we have to, let's see, global, let me see, import global store, and let's console log global store. Let's see. And let us just remove this stuff. Let's see what happens. So let's type something out. Yeah. Basically, whenever you create a new instance of the state, you're actually just copying the object, right? So it's not gonna share itself. Because you see, now we're updating. Wait, but then... But let me try to see if it actually... Okay, so let's put something into input by default, so we can see it. Okay, so now we can see it. Let's see. Yeah, you see, it's not updating. Yeah, you see, because it's not detecting the change, because this is basically, this here is a brand new instance of our state, right? So it's just like a copy of it. Yeah, so if you want to share globally, you have to do it through here. You create store instance and then you share globally. So now everything that's being updated across your app is always gonna be store instance, right? Unless you want to create a new instance of this class, which is an object, and then have completely separate changes. Okay, so if something is not working in the future, try to go back to passing it as prop. Honestly, I don't understand the point of passing it as properties. It's the same shite. Because originally what we did was we went here. You see, we created store instance, and then we passed it as a prop into the store provider, and then we received it in here, and then we passed it as value in here. But I mean, I'm thinking, what's the point in doing this if you can just create it in here and then off it goes, right? Okay, so we don't need this anymore. This component is probably gonna complain. Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Oh, whoopsie, I forgot to press this button in here, so it's gonna be 10 minutes probably. Actually, this is probably gonna be like 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes. Yeah, wait, my store.input, let's see. Yeah, it doesn't like it. Yeah, because we have to create a new instance of the class first, right? Yeah. So we don't even need this in here. We just need const store equals use my store global, right? Like this. And then we can remove this. And then voila. Everything should now work. Yeah. Everything is working. There we go. Okay. Alright, so this is done. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Take care.